Hello, everybody, and welcome back to WMMA Mania, a very scrambled episode of WMMA Mania. If you could not tell, I do not have my microphone today, so I hope that we're sounding all right. But I am Drake Riggs, here every single week to bring you the weekly happenings in the world of mixed martial arts when it pertains to ladies. So, today we will be getting into obviously recapping UFC Vegas 59, which was an absolute finish fest, as you could see from the title. All finishes on that card, so very fun stuff to talk about and reflect on, of course. And then we'll get into the news as we do. Be previewing Bellator 284 and UFC San Diego. 6 total fights to talk about this weekend. Very exciting stuff. Hope you are all doing well on this Monday. Don't forget, as always, to visit MMAmania.com for all your MMA needs. And don't forget to follow, like, share, and subscribe. Really helps us out a whole lot. You just hit that little thumbs up button and subscribe on all platforms so you don't miss a gosh darn thing. And that's also what the notification bell is for. Really highlights what is going on. So, and then, of course, you can always get in your questions throughout the show if you would so fancy. And if you're on Twitter, of course, head on over to YouTube because we cannot see your comments there. And apparently Twitter's just having an issue today when it comes to StreamYard. So that's where we're at. So yeah, crazy times, crazy times. As Makoto says, lots of finishes, but was it a good card? I don't know. On this show, we value skill, technique, and clever strategy, but was that really on full display on Saturday? All right, well, we'll get into that more momentarily. James, good to see you. Cy Drake, I will only make up my opinion on this card after I hear what both you and Ghost have to say about it. All right, well, as I always say, form your own opinions if you can, but I appreciate that you are interested in ours. Alvin, what a fantastic card filled with finishes and fighters who did their best, wishing all who fought good health after. Indeed, some people definitely were on the receiving end of some brutal finishes, that's for sure. As Jimmy says, hi Drake, I don't know about you, but despite all the finishes, I did not think this card was that good. So I actually have not got to watch the full card yet. I just watched back the women's fights last night since very busy this weekend with 2 of my friends' weddings to attend. So it has been very crazy. Right now, very crazy period in my life. But we're over that hill. So we can get back to some normality, hopefully. But yeah, I have not seen the full thing yet. Of course, I've seen all the finishes, but I have not seen the full fights, aside from the 3 we'll be talking about here in a moment. As Ghost says, finishes don't always tell you that it was a good fight or that there were good fighters fighting or anything good actually happened. Yes, that's fair. But obviously, people can still enjoy things. Good to see you, Jin. And Banks, John Miller says, let's see some fights. Of course. Well, that's what the weekend is for. And Sharon, how kind of you, says, congrats on your friend's wedding. You know, very kind. Yes, long time coming for both of them, both couples. So Ghost says, let's all be smart today and look at all the fights we saw on that dreadful card objectively. Well, okay. I mean, that's still subjective, though, at the same time, unless we look at exactly what did happen, which we will do, as we'll kick off here with UFC Vegas 59, obviously. And let me see here. Sorry, got to adjust things a little bit differently without the mouse right now. So we'll close down these tabs and we'll pull up, starting with the flyweight Ultimate Fighter fight where Julianna Miller defeated Brogan Walker via 3rd round TKO with punches and elbows at 3:57. So this was actually fairly surprising to me. Especially in terms of the dominance that we got from Julianna Miller, who has really kind of turned a new leaf and come into her own for the most part, if you did watch her still very early career prior to the Ultimate Fighter. And again, I didn't even get to catch up on those, so shame on me. I will get around to that as well. But from her first 3 professional fights. And I believe they were all in Invicta. At least 2 of them were. We knew that she was great on the ground, very solid jiu-jitsu. But in this fight, I mean, it was pretty much one-way traffic against Brogan Walker, who's typically pretty solid down there. And again, as we talked about last week, it wasn't even close in terms of the competition level that they had been fighting up until this point. But yeah, she made it look very easy. And even on the feet, she looked a lot sharper than she had been looking in the past. Just tighten that up a bit. And specifically what stood out to me was the timing that she had with her jab. It was better in kind of counter efforts than it was just thrown out there, which I thought was interesting, but looked very good. And she was showing some improvements, got kind of sloppier as things got in close when it came to her punches and whatnot. But the most impressive thing I think about Julianna Miller, and I talk about it all the time, you guys know, it's that killer instinct. You can't teach that, and she definitely has that no matter where the fight goes. Obviously, primarily with her grappling. Whether it's with ground and pound, which she was letting all out there, and it ended up getting the finish, or her submission game. She was working for a rear naked there in the second round too. So yeah, just great tenacity from her always, and that's kind of something that if you can build off that with everything else she has going, someone to watch for. And yeah, she seemed very physically strong in there. Like Julianna Miller is growing into a very interesting prospect, no doubt. And I thought going into the show with practically most of the women that were on The Ultimate Fighter, that it was probably too early for them, but how she's continued to improve here, Julianna, as seemingly the most, well, clearly the best. I mean, she won the show, right? That she's proven, yeah, it's fine for her to be in the UFC now. She has deserved it, earned this. And again, like I said, if you can build off what she's already got going for her, a very strong grappling game, and continually, chipping away at making some striking strides, then hey, that's awesome. Can't wait to see what is next for her and who is next. And for Brogan, I would imagine they'd give the finalist another chance, at least one more chance before she got cut or something. And yeah, if not, then I would imagine she'd go back to Invicta. Blanking. Sharon says, will I get married soon? No plans on that right now, Sharon, but I am definitely happy with what I have going. So yeah, that's something we'll worry about a while from now, if ever. But I think you can be with someone for as long as you possibly can imagine, and you don't have to get married to do that. So I'm not so sure how I feel about that whole concept. As James says, what did I think of Tough? People said it was the worst season. Yeah, as I said last week, still haven't got around to it. I don't know. Just it's losing it for me now. And I watched all the way up from season 10 to, was it 28, I think? Yeah, I didn't watch 29. That's for sure. As Rain says, Drake is the Jamal Hill of laughing at Sam Alvey's skill. All right. Another very interesting comparison, Rain, but I appreciate it. I think it's a compliment. As Alex is here from Facebook and from Bangtao, Thailand. Awesome. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for tuning in. And Jimmy says, I've never heard of Brogan Walker. What did she do to piss off Miller? Well, if you're referring to the end of the fight with the crotch chop, I don't think that was personal. I think she explained she just kind of did it in the moment, and her WWE fandom kind of came out of her there. But I don't think there was anything personal there. And as you said, unless you're just referring to how she got dominated, yeah, I think she just really wanted to win. Julianna Miller, undeniably proven to be the biggest, the person who wanted it the most, that's for sure. But yeah, Brogan is a solid fighter, but she definitely was not on Saturday. Had nothing there for Julianna, really. And thank you for tuning in from Fort Mill there, Banks. Makota says, will Brogan Walker get another shot at the UFC? As I said, I would imagine since she was a finalist, she'd get one more. As Alvin says, best wishes to all the tough contestants. They go through a hard time on the show, very much so, but have the opportunity to showcase their skills to the world, very much so. James, how does one get on tough, be a good fighter, or do you need more? Well, if the tough 28 season was anything to go by, it doesn't matter if you're a good fighter in most cases, because they chose practically no featherweights for the featherweight season. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting these days. That typically was how it used to be, James. And they would do tryouts sometimes or have the eliminator fights, but those are no longer a thing for the most part, it seems. But anyway, congrats to Julianna Miller again. Like I said, curious to see what is next for her and how quickly they kind of want to progress her through the flyweight ranks, because they've been very all over the place with flyweight prospects specifically, I think, in terms of how quickly they want to bring them up. And someone with a pretty unique personality like Miller and, pretty fun fighting style for the most part. Who knows if we see a Macy Barber-esque type treatment there, but time will tell. As we move on to Corey McKenna defeating Miranda Granger via second round submission, a Von Flue choke at 1 minute and 53 seconds. Love me a good old Von Flue. And it was very, very funny. Just to be totally honest, it was very funny as right before, or pretty much right as Corey landed and dropped Miranda into this position. Hello. Miranda was like talking to her corner, and I didn't quite hear what they said to her, but she's like, "I'm okay." She's saying, "It's fine. I'm all right." And no, it wasn't. It was not. You hung on to the head and you paid for it. And so what? That was officially the first Von Flue in the UFC for a woman. So congrats on a little bit of history there, Corey. And the story of this fight, essentially like the last fight, was the strong wrestling from Corey McKenna, which is not great for Granger, who you gotta think that's probably her last fight now, because that's 3 losses in a row, the layoff, you name it. And she's generally a pretty solid grappler in her own right, but didn't have too many answers there and succumbed to a Von Flue after saying she was okay, which is definitely very bad optics there. So, yeah. And I think that Corey showed some decent improvements on the feet as well. Nothing crazy or drastic, but obviously this was primarily a grappling performance from her, where she does some of her best work. And I can always appreciate someone who knows how to properly attack the head and the arm, whether it is with an arm triangle or a Von Flue, which she did have the arm triangle going for her at the end of the first round there. But time kind of ran out. She could have got that potentially. Looked pretty tight, but we'll never know, and it doesn't really matter. So, thank you, Greg. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Everyone shouting out their locations from Mississippi. Very cool. As James says, I cannot wait to hear what Ghost has to say about the McKenna fight. I mean, she didn't look bad. She won, so shouldn't have too much negativity to say about a finished victory. She had really not much resistance. As Ghost says, I've given McKenna a hard time in the past for getting hit with right hands, but guys, and Drake, just give me this one. She came out with her lead shoulder high, which is correct if you don't want to get hit with a right hand. Then in the first exchange, she gets hit with a right hand with no setup. Every single boxing book since the 1938 teaches that if you get hit with a right hand, you are a sucker, hence the term sucker punch. Well, that sucker still won. As I said, did not matter. So, as Makoto says, he might be new to MMA, 3-year fandom, but it seemed like she was not comfortable in there. I did not get that sense either. Yeah. She is still very young in MMA. She's 23. So still plenty of work to be done. We know she's super green, but again, this wasn't a bad performance by any means necessary. You know, maybe not the most impressive or whatever, but hey, a win for her. So she keeps on keeping on. And like I said, probably it for Granger, which sucks, you know, always. But I mean, hey, if Sam Alvey can stick around, which apparently he's a free agent now. So we'll see. And I guess that was kind of the idea after his last fight, right? I don't know. But we're not going to talk about Sam Alvey today. No need for that. No offense, Sam. And all right, now we close out UFC Vegas 59's recap with the weirdness. You want to talk about Phantom Taps? Mayra Bueno Silva defeating Stephanie Egger via first round submission armbar at 117. Was the third quickest submission, I believe, for a woman in UFC history. And this, to me, I mean, there's literally no angle or proof whatsoever that we have, no visual proof that we have of her tapping. And she didn't even admit it right afterward, but she didn't deny it at the same time. But yeah, this was very odd. And I mean, this is exactly what we talked about last week, though, with Bueno Silva and Egger's style clash. Like, you knew that Egger was most likely going to be the one to be on top because she likes her judo and hitting her throws and whatnot, and she kind of did that a little bit. And then once getting down there, you're playing with fire against Bueno Silva, who is very solid off her back and able to latch onto things. And probably she's better off her back with her submission game than on top from what we've seen. And so she played with fire, and she paid for it in an unconventional way. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's not too much to say about this aside from the fact I just wish there was like a definitive angle. And I'm kind of surprised there was a poll on, I think it was yesterday's morning report. Yeah, pretty sure it was yesterday's over on MMA Fighting that was asking, did Egger tap? And it was like 70% said yes. And I'm like, did I miss something? Did I miss the angle? Because there was nothing here to me that looked like there was a tap, but there was that judge who was right in front of it, and he said he saw it. That guy had the best angle, easily. Well, Ron McCarthy, I believe, is who it was. And then Herb Dean apparently also said that he saw it, but Herb was making a goddamn cameo right before the fight ended, so how much attention was he paying to this? I mean, that guy, my goodness. What are we going to do about that? I don't know. Good for Bueno Silva. So Jimmy says she tapped. I've been in that position before when I was a white belt a couple of years ago. That armbar was tight. I mean, it definitely looked, I'm not saying it didn't look good or like it was in. It was certainly, yeah, she had that on, but I saw nothing. And again, like Bisping said too, this is the best point I think that was probably made the whole time that I've seen. Bisping saying, kind of on Bueno Silva there for letting go. You know, like the ref's supposed to stop it. And of course, you don't want to do too much damage to somebody. But hey, if you don't want any controversy, hang on to that sucker till the ref sees the tap or what have you. But she let go of it herself. So a good sport, a very good sport by MBS. But yeah. And Go saying, bad fight to begin with. Egger started with a head and arm throw where she exposed her back. Well, of course, that is never the intention, Ghost. So that was just a credit to Mayra for not getting hit with that as cleanly as she could have. But obviously, that's the risk that you take with the head and arm throw. So, yep. And then he says Mayra didn't take her back. Then Egger turned back into MBS, closed guard, then got armbarred. Yeah, not good. All right. As Makoto says, how much chaos was there when the ref was asking the judges if they tapped? Seems like no one knew what was going on. Yeah, that was pretty wild. And he told them to bring up like that little light, which I'd never seen before. That was very weird. He's like, pull up the light. And it was like one of those little, cop sirens from back in the day that they put on the roof or whatever. Don't even know. But yeah, James says, why ask Herb? Wasn't he doing a cameo? Yes, he was. And from a decent distance, too. Decent distance there. So, yeah, there's not much more to add on that, really. Sucks for Egger, but she's not going anywhere off that loss. And Mayra Bueno Silva gets her win bonus for not having to do very much. So, there you go. That is UFC Vegas 59. Definitely kind of a mashup of interesting results there. No doubt. Whoa, that was interesting. As James says, not really a good way to start the card with this organization. Yeah, no kidding. That was the very first fight of the night. So, great point. That's all I could say there. But okay, that was UFC Vegas 59, you guys. Ran on through it. Yeah, I can't say too much about the card overall, but there were some nice knockouts. Definitely Muhammad Usman, crazy knockout there. Jamal Hill keeps on keeping on. But anyway, we'll move on to the news, breeze through it, as we have 2 announcements and then kind of some rescheduling. So there we are. Let's get into it. As at flyweight, Amanda Ribas is staying there, as a fight with Tracy Cortez is in the works for the December 3rd fight night. Location to be determined. So this is very interesting. Obviously, for probably the biggest reason being that Ribas is sticking with another flyweight fight after dropping that Chukagian loss. And for her to go down to someone like Cortez is like, because Cortez is not ranked as far as I'm aware right now. Not that she should be. So kind of pumping the brakes on the Ribas hype train, I think it would seem like, from the UFC's perspective, which is fine. And this is a pretty interesting matchup here. She's got to work on that striking defense if her last fight is anything to go by. Obviously, Ribas going to be a little bit dangerous on the ground herself, and especially if she can get on top of Cortez. Cortez is going to be in a world of trouble because Ribas's top game is very, very underappreciated and underrated. We haven't seen it for a good bit now, probably since the Randa fight, but when she gets on top of you, she beats some ass. And Cortez is obviously a very good wrestler, so stylistically, this one's pretty interesting, and in terms of the length from each, I would imagine it'd be pretty close, but obviously size advantage will be slightly for Tracy as well. So I'm actually not too upset with that one. It's kind of rare that you see them give kind of, I don't want to say a softener in a way for Ribas, someone coming up who is ranked from another division and whatnot. But definitely makes things interesting, continually interesting at flyweight. So I'm actually pretty fine with that one. Don't have too many qualms. And hey, for Cortez, that's a more notable name that you can potentially get a win over. So sure, she's fine with that. But then we stick with flyweight some more, as Melissa Gatto, unfortunately, is out. And Maria Agapova is in, even though she was out of a fight recently. And now she will be taking on Jillian Robertson at the September 17th UFC Fight Night. Location to be determined for that one as well. So this matchup is entirely dependent on the first round. And I mean, that's typically the case for, has been seemingly the case for Agapova, at least in her losses. And, she is very aggressive in the first round, is typically, even in victory as well, and has been a little bit exposed in her grappling. So against Jillian Robertson, who is practically only a grappler and best when on top, and struggles a bit more on bottom, as we've seen her exposed a bit too. if she doesn't survive that first round flurry and onslaught that Agapova will surely bring to her, then she'll probably win. And this is a replacement fight, so can't really complain too much about it there. September 17th, so that is next month. Almost a little over a full month until this goes down. But sucks to see Gatto out. Always like watching her fight, and she's looking to rebound herself. So not sure what happened there. But wishing her a speedy recovery if it is an injury or what have you. Not so sure. Don't want to speculate, but yeah, nothing too wrong with that one either. So, all right. Then we have 2 reschedulings, so don't really have a lot to say about them since we already have discussed both of these, actually. As at Bantamweight, Sarah McMahon versus Aspen Ladd has been rescheduled for that same event. Unfortunately, missed out on that one, which was supposed to take place this week, so we'd be talking about that anyway, I guess. That has been moved, and so has the co-main event at flyweight. Alexa Grasso and Araujo is no longer happening this weekend, rescheduled for October 15th. Fight night event. Location to be determined for that one as well. Bummer, but at least they're still set to happen. Obviously, a little bit of a difference there in the reschedulings, as Grasso's is pushed out more. And that makes things a little bit more interesting with the flyweight title picture, too, actually. Like, what are they going to do in that regard with Valentina? Don't know. And Santos just recently, yesterday she said she's not going to undergo surgery for the orbital. So I don't know if that will make things better, or maybe it's not as bad as I would assume. It's not as bad if you don't need the surgery, but she's still healing, I would imagine, from the broken orbital. But I don't know. I still don't feel too confident in an immediate rematch being made there, just because I feel like in those cases you need the challenger to have been very clearly robbed, and that fight was not a robbery. That was definitely a very close one. In terms, if you were to compare to like Jones Reyes, or a lot of people thought that Machida Shogun 1 was a huge robbery, obviously, and then that warranted Shogun an instant rematch in one of those very rare cases. But I don't quite know if I'd say it was the same. And I know that a lot of people did pick Santos, but I feel like robbery level, I don't even consider it robbery. So we'll see about that. But that's your news cycle today. As Jimmy says, why do you defend the head and arm throw? It's an easy technique that is countered. Why do I defend it like being used? Well, just because, I don't know, we have seen it work, and when it does work, it is very effective. But is it worth it? I don't know, it just kind of depends on the fighter and their comfort with it, I suppose. But obviously, it's not something you should probably go to a whole bunch, but because of how easy it is to counter. But if you can lock it in right, we've seen how effective it is. And I think that's kind of what people will generally think when they do go for it. So not something I would probably personally look at too much, just because of, and again, I guess it also comes down to the comfort you would have with people on your back, obviously, having people on your back. As Go says, have they stopped giving Hebas layups? Because this is not a layup stylistically. Cortez actually punishes the head and arm. Right. And I'm not sure that I would expect Hebas to go for any head and arms in that fight, actually. But Jimmy says, who would be favored here? That's a good question. I think Cortez will probably be a slight favorite, just because of the size plus her style, her skill set of kind of leaning on her wrestling for the most part. But I think it should be pretty close odds. I wouldn't be surprised if Hebos is, because I think Hebos is probably better overall and has, fought and beat better competition as well. But for those reasons, because of the divisional change, I could see it being slightly different there. As Telvin Kipapas here, good to see you, says Demon Slayer. All right. I'm not sure if you're just saying that or if there's a reference I'm missing. But Alex says, Drake, I train with some UFC fighters at Bangtao MMA. I'd like to ask one of them when the next fight is booked, but I feel that's inappropriate. Any advice on how to approach her? We speak the same language, but I don't want to be rude. I don't think that's a rude question, really. I mean, unless that's like all you ask about. If you're like already friendly with this person and talk to them about other things, then I don't think that's too much of a problem. If you're annoying about it and that's like all you ask about, then clearly that's never something they like to be asked about. But I think if you just kind of casually mix it into a conversation, that would be the way. James says, no Joe Gatto. Yep, unfortunately not. Rain says, why does the UFC keep trying to push Hebos and Drake and Ghost? How would you guys describe the worst matchup for her? Well, I don't, like I said, I don't see this as a push anymore for her. Yes, it's a softer matchup compared to a top-ranked contender in Chukagian last time out, but I wouldn't. I feel like they're not pushing her anymore, especially the same. Ever since she lost to Marina, I feel like it's been a lot different, for sure. But the worst matchup for her, I mean, it would be obviously. I think if you were to take someone with Marina's striking skill set, and then let's say, I don't know, somebody who defends very well. Maybe Joanna's grappling defense. That's just the first that comes to mind. But yeah, I think if you kind of look at when she struggled, it's been kind of by those. And I mean, I guess you could just do Joanna in that case, because like I'm sure Joanna would have had plenty of success against her with that in mind, because she's a very good striker herself, but she doesn't have that same power that Marina does. But she could probably still finish her, because we've seen Amanda get chinned up a little bit in the past before. So, and Crombopolis Rosen, love that name, very fun. Says, good afternoon to you. Saw that this was recommended on Dan Tom's show by the chat. Had to check it out. Well, that is very, very kind of them. Thank you for coming on over and tuning in. Yeah, and on a Tuesday here, which I should have said that off the top, as we are on Tuesday today. Sorry, guys. Excuse me. All over the place. But I think might move the show to Tuesday permanently. Not 100% sure on it yet, but we'll stick with the same time that we do for Monday, which is this time right now. But I don't know, leaning towards a Tuesday shift just because of kind of some scheduling stuff in terms of end of my weekend juggling. But we'll see. That is not concrete yet. But Monday or Tuesday going forward. You will know soon enough. But thank you for tuning in again. KR, I'm going to call you that because the first name is a lot to say repeatedly. As Yuna says, hello, good to see you, Yuna. Do you think that Muay Thai is a good base for MMA? Absolutely, yeah. We've seen plenty of Muay Thai fighters have fantastic success. I just mentioned Joanna. Anderson Silva is obviously a huge one. Valentina. List goes on and on. I'm surely forgetting plenty. As Go says, Hebos' worst matchup is someone with a big right hand and someone who can take the back athletically. There's one fighter strawweight that has those weapons. Actually, two fighters, Lemos and Whaley, two fighters with a big right hand and good at taking backs. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, Lemos would be very tough matchup for Hebos. Good shout. That is perfect. And then Whaley is also a very tough one indeed. But yeah, Those are perfect examples, I think. Then my mythical fighter that I made up there. But because of the power that you mentioned, those are better, I think, than, let's say, a Joanna or something like that. And Telvin, says Maria. Oh, that's a good point. Right, I blanked on that. My bad. Didn't have it pulled up. Yes, she is the Demon Slayer. She'll need to slay him this time. So Alex says, great advice. Yes, she's at wrestling class every Tuesday training her feet before class. That's actually how we met. Nice. Very cool. Well, yeah, that would be what I'd suggest. Don't make it a thing. I guess that's the best way to put it. But, I don't see nothing too wrong with that, because surely they get asked about it all the time, which is why you don't want to be annoying with it. But anyway, we will move on from the news cycle now and get into the weekend festivities, I should say. As we start off here with a what to watch for. So I'm not going to break down or preview this fight necessarily, but I just wanted to mention it because it is tonight, Dana White's Contender Series. As we have, the picture here, Sandra Lovato versus Carolina Wojcik. And if you guys are familiar with KSW, you will probably have remembered us talking about Carolina in the past, the Polish assassin coming in here, former EFC champ, and has obviously gotten some wins in KSW over some familiar face too. Alexandra Rolla, Sylvia Zhushkevich, who just fought recently. I know we talked about her for some reason, but I don't remember who she fought. It might have been somewhere in Asia, I feel like. Either way, Wojcik looking pretty good right now, and she's what a great nickname battle this is too, by the way, just real quick. Carolina is the Polish assassin, and then Sandra is the Peruvian zombie. Very fun. Both 3-fight winning streaks. Some good experience in notable promotions. Sandra coming from Combate before her last 2 fights. But yeah, so this is a strawweight fight, by the way. Going down tonight if you want to watch that. Worth a watch. I'm more familiar with Carolina, so yeah, curious to see how she does. So, worth a mention. At least. As James says, Nick Atkin didn't ask Quayle for an interview, and he saw her every day. Is Nick shy? What have you done in that situation? I think that I wouldn't say Nick's shy. He did plenty of interviews there, and who knows, maybe he did try. I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to talk to Whaley there. But I don't know. I can't really answer that because I don't know how things were. But what would I have done in that situation? I would have. I mean, I would have tried, but that's tricky because they were training and doing stuff together. So that makes it a little bit weirder and more uncomfortable, I would say. So like the people he did talk to, he definitely knew beforehand, and it was like mostly one guys. And he did talk to Volkanovski too, who was a little bit more open and friendly, outgoing. So yeah, I don't know. It's a very unique situation to be in, though, James. That's for sure. Let me take the Contender Series banner down there for a second. As Telvin says, he's really high for DWCS tonight, especially for Bo. Yes, Bo Nickel. That is an exciting appearance. See how he continues to do. And Rain says, how cool is it that JHK got to be Whaley's training partner during conditioning on whatever day that was? I've given him a hard time in the past, but lots of respect to her. Yeah, that's definitely cool for everybody getting to train at Bang Tao right now. They got a lot going on. So, all right, let's get into the Bellator 284 preview. 2 fights coming up this Friday. And the first one will be A rematch that we don't necessarily need. A very odd one, as we discussed when it was announced by yours truly. Deanna Bennett, Justine Kish 2. Vitamin D. Yeah, so this one, I mean, there's not too much I think that needs to be discussed about it because of how quickly that this just happened and just how illogical it is. Again, Deanna Bennett's last win 5 months and a week ago was against Justine Kish. Since then, Justine 3 months ago did beat Aleem Malay. Very solid performance there. You know, showed some good grappling improvements, put Aleem in some danger on the ground. Aleem a little bit hindered after being thrown to the ground by Kish, though. So, like, it was a totally fair situation that occurred with the injury to Aleema, which, shameless plug, if you did not see, spoke to Aleema before her fight that we're about to talk about here on the channel, on the website. Check that out. We talked about all that stuff. But for Deanna Bennett, who's kind of gotten onto a little roll, just 2 fights, obviously, but very strong efforts against Lara and Justine, where she didn't lose a round in either of those fights. Been dominating with her wrestling. Her boxing has sharpened up pretty well at 37. Excuse me. Sorry, Deanna, not adding a year on. So she's been looking very good. And I don't know. I just see no reason for this fight to not look like another dominant wrestling victory for her so quickly after the first one happened. Like, it's just such an unnecessary rematch. And I think clearly it wouldn't have happened if Justine didn't upset Aleema, but like, I don't see how there wasn't something else you could have gone with here if you're Bellator. And I mean, hey, big props to Deanna for taking this fight that she absolutely doesn't need to. I guess that's in theory an easy payday, in theory, right? Minus 240 favorite here, which fair odds, because again, it should be similar. I mean, I don't know. Of course, Kish can always make improvements, adjustments from the fight, but it's just been so quickly off a dominant loss. So just kind of some Bellator silliness with the matchmaking, as we've come to know and not so love. Not so much. As Telvin says, yeah, when I think Kish, unfortunately, just think that's not great. Definitely not great at all. And Ghost with a fantastic point here. Thank you for mentioning this. This is also a shout out to the interview with Aleema, but he says, you think Emi Fujino doesn't kick for the same reason that McFarlane doesn't kick? You might be onto something here. So if you did not see the chat with Aleema, go check it out. But she said that anatomically, her doctors have told her she is not meant to kick, and we never have really seen any kicks out of her, whatsoever. I mean, there have been some leg kicks every now and then earlier on, but her hips apparently just are not meant to go in such directions. And I think that could be a great point, Ghost, mentioning Emi Fujino, not, or maybe being similar there. Very well could be. I'm going to have to, next time I should talk to Emi soon and ask her, what's up with the kicking idea, the lack of kicking. And obviously her knees are, kind of crumbling away at this point. Has a lot of tape on her when she fights. But I don't think it's a knee issue for her because she's never kicked, like you said. So very well could be a hip thing. I mean, that would make total sense. I see no reason for a fighter to not kick if they can, So you could be onto something there, Ghost. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. That's a great shout and comparison. Sammy, good to see you, my friend, says, what's up? Would Sekizawa ever go to Bellator like Kyoji did, or is she too small? Well, that's the thing, right? Is yeah, it's certainly totally possible, but her divisions are not in Bellator. Of course, she could have an atomweight or a flyweight fight in Bellator like Reina did, right? Reina fought Lindsey Van Zandt on that Madison Square Garden show. What was it, 180, I want to say? A couple of years back. But it would have to be something like that. there's no way in hell Saka's fighting at flyweight ever unless she totally beefs up as she gets older. But I don't think that's gonna happen. She's only like what 5'2", so yeah, not a chance there. I mean, I guess that doesn't say much. Andrade is like what 5'1". But if she was to go to Bellator, I think it would be in one of those cases there, Sammy. But that's kind of pointless for her when she's the best in the world and the champion, unless you're going to do some kind of crazy super fight, champ versus champ matchup where like you had her fight Del Boni in Bellator for some weird, odd reason. Neutral ground, maybe. I don't see that happening. Or if they bring in their own division, then that would be more realistic. So, yeah. Yeah. James is anatomically not meant to kick. That's rough. Yes, it certainly is. So. Okay. We will move on now. Well, first, as Una says, how important do you value kicking? It's very important in Muay Thai because it's a long-range weapon. Yeah, no, it's I mean, mixed martial arts, you're mixing them all up. Kicking is quite a big, important deal. I mean, Alima, though, has, been talented enough to obviously get by with that disadvantage to have great success. So good on her. But yeah, no, it's a very, the more weapons, the better. Like, there's no doubt about that. So, yeah, it's very important. You know, no doubt about it. There's so many things you can do with more options, obviously, and especially rangefinders like kicks can be, and the amount of damage that they can implement. But all right, so with that in mind, we will talk about her fight now in general. So let me adjust here a little bit. Alima McFarland taking on Bruna Ellen. Also at flyweight. These are the lone two fights for Bellator 284 in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Excuse me. Oh, apologies, guys. I'm feeling it now. So Bruna Ellen coming in here looking to get her biggest win of her career, right? She's already had some big fights, but unable to make the best of them. Obviously, most specifically, the Velasquez loss nearly 3 years ago now. She hasn't been the most active, but she's still quite young at 26, so not the worst thing in the world for her. Alternated wins and losses in that time span, dating back to the Vita Ortega win, Christina Williams loss, Kalinadu victory there, and most recently Desiree Yanez. When was that? Nearly a year ago now as well. Alima still the slight favorite, which I think is fair. We do know she is the better fighter historically. I mean, that's not even a question. But I've always liked the promise that Bruna has shown. She's always, one of the things that stood out to me is how well she chains her takedowns together off the end of combinations. And with that said, though, Alima did make a great point when talking about this with me, was that Bruna has not been a finisher, though, whatsoever in her career. So that's something that, maybe if she's been able to work on. And again, we talked about killer instinct earlier. It's kind of you either have it or you don't. And she has not historically been one of those. Whereas Alima, I wouldn't say she has the strongest killer instinct ever, especially recently, but she's definitely been much more of a finisher throughout her career. I mean, most of her victories are from submission, I believe. And she does have some TKOs, if I can speak. TKOs as well. Remember the Vita one that she had couple of years ago. I was at that fight. The elbow in the guard just split the middle of her forehead. Crazy shit there. So yeah, she does work on the ground. That's obviously where she's at her best. And as we know, we will not be seeing any kicks out of her in this one. So I think that obviously that helps Ellen in regard to not having to worry about those. But in terms of catching anything, kind of hurts her there. Not that, I mean, for Bruna, actually, the more you think about it, it's probably going to be best for her to not even want to gamble with Alima on the ground, because that is where she typically wants the fights. So circling and kind of picking Alima apart from a distance is what what Bruna is going to want to do here. Similar, That's why it came to mind, similar to how Juliana Velasquez kind of beat Lima as well. So I think that would be a game plan she should try to replicate there, and see where it goes. Obviously, she'll be at a little bit of a disadvantage in the length department. I'm not sure what her reach is, but I would imagine it's probably either the same or shorter. But yeah, she will be gambling on the ground if she takes it there, which you never know. You never know. So, as Ghost says, yeah, he agrees. Kicking into takedowns is one of the most powerful tools an MMA fighter has. More weapons, the harder it will be for your opponent. Yep, indeed. And Jimmy says, well, shouldn't Ellen just calf kick McFarlane if she knows that she will not kick? That is a fantastic point. Yeah, I mean, every fighter should probably kick the shit out of Alima's legs now that she's very open about this. But I'm not sure if Ellen does know English even, but I'm sure someone should relay this to her if they're smart in their training camp and preparation. Take advantage of this. Take advantage. And Zhao too kind. I love you too. I heart you. Telvin says, I won't be surprised if Alima wins and gets a title shot. Oof. I love Alima. I really do. Consider her a friend, but that is unjustifiable. You cannot do that. That makes no sense. Even though she did say also when speaking to somebody else that I think it was Danny Segura, shout out to him over at MMA Junkie. What she's planning to retire at the end of her contract here, which is just 4 more fights, including this one. So you could be right there, Telvin. I mean, surely they will give her whatever she wants for her last fight, but if she wins, gets a title shot after this, that is just absurd. That is, and I guess that's exactly right up Bellator's alley. So yeah, I think it wouldn't be very surprising. Now that you mention it, you convinced me. Don't think it should happen, but I guess it sure well could. It's Craig. Good to see you always. Says hi. Sending you some positive vibes, as Dan Tom said in the Protect Your Neck podcast, that we can all be a little more positive. Absolutely, we could. Well, thank you so much for that. Yes, always good to spread the love and positivity. Shout out to Dam. What a guy. He's one of the good ones. As Go says, it's 1 week to the fight. It's too late to learn. Oh, yeah. Calf kicks if you haven't been training it. Yes. So that's something you will have to have been working on already. And Jimmy says, speaking of Dan Tom, will you guys do a collab one day? Maybe listing something. I mean, I'd be open to it. Of course, love Dan. I think we've done maybe one show together in the past. It was a while ago, but or I know maybe he filled in, I think, on the body lock one day. I don't know if I've actually ever done an actual show with Dan, but I've talked to him before. Great guy. And yeah, I'd be open to it, but we have not discussed anything. The closest was was that body lock. I don't remember what it was. It might have been a pre-show or the tailgate show back in the day. So yeah, that's that. And that is Bellator 284. So on Friday, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Before UFC San Diego the day after. So let's just get right on into this bad boy. Very, very excited for that. You guys know why. As the biggest Dominic Cruz fan you'll ever know, I am hyped for my boy. A little bit scared, as always, just because Cheeto is very, very good as well. But I can't not be excited. So excited but nervous all at the same time. Really hoping he puts on a goddamn masterclass, as we've seen him do before, and at home for the first time in 9 years or something like that. No, longer than that, I think. 2009, I think it was. Crazy. But anyway, what we'll be talking about first is a fight that was supposed to happen last week and got moved to this week. At flyweight, kicking off the card, I believe, Ariane Lipski and Priscilla Cachoeira is still going down. And I talked all about this last week, so I don't think I'm really going to say anything here because nothing's changed, right? Well, Lipsky did miss weight though, right? And then she was deemed medically unfit. Somebody missed weight this past week, right? I know that for sure. And then the fight was canceled because Lipsky wasn't cleared. I know that much, but I don't remember which one of them made weight, so I'm not gonna missed weight, I should say. I guess made weight as well. But either way, if you want to hear me talk about this fight, go to last week's episode 23. And I mean, all I need to say, as I say every time talking about Priscilla Cachoeira, just attempt a takedown, you're going to win. But in this case, it probably goes the other way too. So whoever attempts a takedown is going to win. But they're both strikers who love to throw down. So it's probably not going to happen. But if it does, I would expect it to be Lipsky's much more likely. Just because we've seen her actually have success there, and Cachoeira not so much. So we'll leave it at that. There's really not much more to get into with that one, as much as I do love me, the Violence Queen. So, as James says, Dan and Drake on Mania or Protect Your Neck would be the coolest thing ever. Well, yeah, maybe we can get him to guest host one of these days. We'll see. We'll see what I can do and how busy he is at this hour. So we'll see. Spart, good to see you. Says, how hyped are you for Cruz versus Vera? I'm so it's very weird with me, as I've gotten so much deeper into this lifestyle and career. My super fan hype for fights has totally dwindled away. Like, I used to be total freak in terms of my hype levels, especially for Dom fights. So now I'm definitely very excited for it, and I don't want to miss it at all. But it doesn't kick in for me until fight night. So right now I'm excited. I want to see that, but I'm not overly animated about it. And I think it's because I just have so much going on that I'm can't put the focus onto it the same way that I used to be able to. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. But I'm definitely all about it, Spart. And Telvin says, love Cruz. I love Cruz too. His footwork is so incredible. Been a fan of his since WEC. UFC bring back the blue cage. That would be really cool. Yeah, but not going to happen. As Go says, so high for Cruz versus Vera. It will be interesting to see the tactical ideas in that fight because we know what both will do from a strategic standpoint for sure. James says, Drake, I think whoever touches the leg first will win. You mean just in general with kicks or with takedowns? Because I think it would be great for Dom to try and do something a little bit more unorthodox for him. We've seen him wrestle a whole lot. Specifically, probably the Demetrius fight was his greatest wrestling performance. I mean, he landed 12 takedowns in that one, so I don't even think that's a question really. But no, the man has great knee taps. And again, if you want to talk about takedowns off of combinations and strikes, he's great at that. So I think it would be awesome for him to really lean on confusing Cheeto by throwing in as many, at least threats of a takedown as he possibly could, because why not confuse a guy who's that dangerous? And especially towards later in the rounds, because I think Rob Font was doing very well in the fight against Cheeto until the last minute. So I have full confidence that Dominic can beat him and, give him plenty of trouble, and he just has to avoid getting caught really. So if he can mix in wrestling much more than Rob Font would do, for example, in comparison, I think he should be just fine. And, even Dom highlighted the Frankie Edgar fight. Frankie was beating him too. And a great wrestler like Dominic, I think he can mix that in and have great success. Just a matter of if he will. We'll see. I've got my fingers crossed there for my boy. As RJ says, hey, it seems like the main event is the only cool thing about this fight card. Cruz versus Vera is such a great matchup. Well, it is definitely the one I'm obviously most looking forward to. And there's some other ones on here. I would have to look at the whole thing, honestly, but there are obviously some fights here that we'll be talking about in just a second. James says no for the Lipsky-Priscilla fights. All right. As Rain says, need to ask you, Drake, why does the MMA media defend Esparza so much? I'll elaborate depending on your answer. I don't think they do, Rain. I really don't. I haven't seen much defense at all. So maybe, yeah, some more elaboration would be good. But I've defended her very briefly, but overall, I wouldn't say it's been too strong. If you're referring to obviously the situations here, but I've never been a big Carla fan. I let that be known too. I'm just trying to keep it real. Steve's the Carla guy, so my goodness, you could only imagine if he was around for all this. I'm very curious how he feels. I'm sure it's probably similar to me, but yeah. And James says that's what I meant from whoever touched the lake first. All right, there you go. Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about cruising. Okay. See, I got all thrown off there. You guys threw me off with the main event, but that is true as well, James. Even though honestly, I don't know if we'll see any, single or doubles from either woman. It would probably be some kind of body lock or trip, which I guess then you could count the leg there. But yeah, I would not expect any traditional single doubles out of either of these fighters. But who we can probably expect those out of would be Lupita Godinez, who is fighting at strawweight right after against Angela Hill in what could very well be Angela Hill's retirement fight here. This fight was supposed to happen in October, and they pushed it up for some strange reason. I'm very curious to hear kind of what the idea behind that was, because pretty big jump up. Probably, I would imagine Angela Hill would just wanting to fight in San Diego and not have to go very far. She trains with Dom as well. So that to me would be kind of the thought. And Loopy obviously is willing to fight in quick turnarounds as well. Both of them have no problem fighting on short camps. And so, yeah, here we are. And no odds for this, which is interesting to me. But I would imagine Loopy should certainly be favored here, as Angie looks to snap this skid she's on, starting with the Tisha loss, Lemos, and then Jean de Roba the last time out. So with this fight, it's pretty cut and dry for me, honestly. You look at what Loopy did in her last fight alone, and we're not MMA math people here. We are not supporting MMA math whatsoever. Not saying we should look at it, but in this case, it's pretty funny. I mean, they both had pretty solid performances against Carnelossi. Angela Hill TKO'd via doctor stoppage, right? The cut against Carnelossi in her UFC debut a couple of years ago. And then Loopy, though, in her last fight, just completely dominated her. Completely one-sided mauling with her wrestling. And Loopy's a great boxer, too. She's got some very solid striking. Beat the shit out of Vanessa Demopoulos in their LFA title fight. If you haven't seen that, one of Loopy's best performances, really shows you what she can be capable of going forward. But against Angela Hill, we've seen Angela Hill's takedown defense has never really improved all that much. She gets taken down by just about everybody and anybody. And even if you're not the best grappler, like Ashley Yoder in their rematch, even got her down. Even though Angela Hill pretty convincingly won that fight, she still struggled to not get taken down. Against Loopy, who has that very strong center of gravity, and just was very strong in general. Seeing her power bomb Angie's best friend, Jessica Penne, so I'm sure she'll take some tips from that one and what not to do, but it shouldn't matter too much. Loopy is just going to be too strong and physical, going to get in her face, and she can outstrike her as well, I think, but Angela has kind of that awkward flowy movement. She's pretty mobile as well, puts her combinations together and is very tough, but she's got to be able to breathe to do that, and Loopy is going to be in her face, and this is a very, very tough matchup for Angie Hill here. Overkill. So the best thing that she can do, I mean, she's going to have to make it a bit of a marathon, and that's going to be very difficult. Lots of back and forth, try not to get trapped and cut off. Because bull and matador if you can, but I don't, for 3 full rounds, I don't think it's going to be the easiest of tasks here. And she has obviously the reach advantages. Excuse me, sorry for that. With 61 to 64 and a half, 5'3" and 5'2", not too big a difference there. I always feel like she's taller than she is. Like, she fights very long, Angela Hill does. She always feels like one of the taller strawweights, at least to me. So that also doesn't help her, though, against a great wrestler, in theory. So I think Loopy can very well dominate this and make it look pretty easy. But you never know. You never know. Back against the wall situation, you know how I feel about those. So this is do or die for Angela Hill. I don't think there's any debate about it. Not so sure. Again, we've talked about this in the past. Not so sure that she would be cut. But I don't know. She's 37 now. Like I said, retirement, I think, would be more likely. Similar to Felice Herrig and Jessica Ai, who were both probably on the cusp of being cut after those losses. But Hill has done some desk work, and UFC likes her. So that's kind of my thought there. Been a team player, taking all those short notice fights and whatnot. So that's that. As James says, not a fan of Hill. She got destroyed in her last fight. Yeah, John Jaroba did quite well. As Ghost says, I thought Hill won her last fight, but close fight. Decision is fine, not a robbery. You thought she beat Verna, Ghost? I strongly disagree with that one, unless you're thinking of Lemos, because she absolutely did not beat Verna. That was a great performance by Jean Jaroba. You might be thinking of the Lemos one there. So, okay, yeah, he says Lemos. As Alex is here, good to see you. Says, hey, just arrived. Curious to know if you've already talked about the new PAFC event. No, I completely have missed this, man. Let me know about it, because I have no idea. I have no idea. And Telvin says, Sam Alvey lost 8 straight losses and is still in the UFC. That is very true. But he appears to be some kind of exception. Actually, Telvin, you missed it earlier, but today he said he's a free agent now. So there's no way they can offer him another contract, right? Right. We'll see. But yeah, that was the last fight on his deal. And his jaw's broken, isn't it? So I don't know. As Jin makes a pretty decent point here, Sam Alvey is in the UFC because he takes short notice fights and he defends low fighter pay. That sure helps him. Yeah. And Alex's lineup just came out. 9 fights on the card. Okay, very cool. So yeah, if it just came out, then I had no idea. But yeah, maybe we could talk about that next week. Or if you want to pull it up for me, we can get to it real quick. But yeah, getting close to wrapping here. As we continue on to the newcomer fight at strawweight, Yasmin Yaraguay versus Yasmin Lucindo. Different Yasmin spellings, completely different. That's very funny. At least I'm assuming that Lucindo's name is said the same way, but I didn't get any time to do really any studying or catching up on Lucindo, so I'm still not familiar with her at all. But Yasmin Yaraguay, you guys, I am very, very excited for her to be in the UFC now, and I'm very excited for people to get to know who she is, because she is a super fun fighter. I think that you guys will like her a lot. She's very very exciting, and just has such a wild arsenal. Throws just about everything you can think of, except for she's not too much of an elbower. I mean, she's pulled off some flying knees before, has solid power, very quick, and her flurries are very sharp too. Like, they're not kind of chaotic, wild haymakers, but she'll throw a lot of punches in bunches and generally kicks off the end of her 1-2s, which I always love to see. But what was I getting at? Yeah, she's kind of the best way to describe her, I think, in a lot of cases would be controlled chaos, because she is very much a fighter who puts everything in your face with her strikes, but it's not overly reckless. Like, it's pretty tight techniqued. So she's very solid, and she throws her kicks everywhere too. Like, she mixes up body, head, goes low, and it's usually always combined together and stuff. There's always purpose behind it, which, we love that here, whether it's on a Phantom Punch breakdown or we're just talking about it, but she always has purpose behind what she's throwing. And even on the ground, she's pretty serviceable too. Like, I don't know if I'd necessarily say it's her strong suit, as she is pretty great on the feet, but whenever she gets into positions on the ground, she will blast away from wherever it is. Not too submission heavy there, but her ground and pound can be pretty ferocious, and she goes for it wherever they land in. So Uruguay is such an awesome addition to have. Was the champion in Combate Global, rightful 240 favorite, no matter how good Lucindo is, which, again, haven't got to check yet. And she could totally surprise us like Natalia Silva, who, man, I love me some Natty Silva. Just even mentioning her, I want to go back and watch her last fight again. Still want to talk to her. My goodness, I'm going to have to try and do that again. So, one of the best debuts you'll ever see. So Lucindo could surprise us like Natty Silva is what I'm getting at. But against Uruguay, I struggle to believe that. I recommend you guys go and watch at least a highlight or something of her before the fight to get excited. Just 23. And holy shit, I didn't even see Lucindo's just 20. She's got to be the youngest fighter in the UFC now. My God. Like, for real. Move over, Corey McKenna. So, yeah, this is about as prospecty of a fight as you can ask for. But all the spotlight in this one should firmly be fixated on Uruguay, because she's been awesome so far. And I cannot wait to see her make the debut here. Representing Mexico, another strong Mexican fighter. How about that? Very excited. I would like to talk to her as well. So I'll have to look into that after this one. And depending on how things go, of course. The same goes for Lucindo. But I'm very much excited for this fight, just to learn more about one of the fighters, and then kind of see how one deals with this new platform and whatnot. Rain, I'll get to it in a sec. I'm just trying to kind of get through this here. Citrus says, game late, got to rewatch this. Wishing Drake the best, as Alvin would say. Thank you so much, Synctro. And Alex says, I find it funny how this new organization can come put up more fights than Invicta. How come? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe it's a location thing, right? Because they're Canada-based. Canada. I don't know, Alex. Should look into that. As well. But yes, all right. Give me a second here, Rain. I just really want to talk about Aspen, so very excited for that too. So I'm hyped up probably mostly on this card for obviously Cruz's fight, and then I'm really excited to see her debut. And if Lipsky can do her thing, I'm all for that as well. But it's funny because I love seeing her throw hands and strike. But in this case, if you want to be smart and win against Cachoeira, you make it the opposite of that, using your grappling. So Telvin says, showcase for Mexican fighters on UFC San Diego. Viva la raza. There you go. Zhao says, would you ever fight an MMA Drake like JHK? I think I'm probably past that point, yeah. It would depend on the circumstance. I've always definitely thought about it and had an interest in that, but yeah, I don't know. Depends. It would be very situational, circumstantial, I guess you could say. But all right, here, I'll get to this question before the last fight real quick. Where are we? As Rain says, and I don't want to highlight anybody with negative thoughts too much here, Rain. So that's kind of why I didn't want to get into that too much. But Rain said that a certain group of media from a website said that it's awful that Whaley called for a title fight, gave a location and date. And he says that they said that Carla is the champion and Whaley has no right to call her shot. But when Whaley wanted to fight in Abu Dhabi in 2020 after the Joanna fight, the same people said she has to do what the UFC tells her. Yeah, so I mean, isn't that the same thing then? I mean, they all have to anyway. Everyone has to do what the UFC says. But no, you already know, right? If you've been following, you know that I agree that yeah, the challenger or the non-champion has no right to call their shot because they're not the champion. Sure, they're totally fine to say what you want or make suggestions, no problem there. But I mean, in terms of like, well, I guess, yeah, saying no, right? Well, that's simply not true. But yeah, it shouldn't. The champion should get the advantage, or not advantage, but since they're the champion, like you earn that spot. Challenger doesn't call the shots. That's seems pretty normal and fine to me and clear. So I agree with that side of it for sure. And what you're saying with the comparison sounds very similar to me, unless I'm missing something. But either way, it ultimately doesn't matter because the UFC does whatever they want to do. So, and of course, you can try and push in certain ways, but yeah. And somebody else said something here. What was it? Rain says he also saw nonsense saying that Whaley should stay in her lane and not call for title shots since she has the B side. Well, that's ridiculous. That's completely absurd if that was said. I mean, no. Anybody can call for title shots. Doesn't mean that they should get one necessarily or whatever, but why wouldn't you? That's the ultimate goal. And her being the B side, that is just factually incorrect. Like that's very clearly wrong. And it's like that what you said right there is almost so wrong that I'm not sure I believe that the people referenced said that. Whaley as champ was not allowed to call a location and a date, but Carla can. I mean, they can all do whatever they want. Again, UFC will do what they want, but in terms of, I don't know. I feel like this is a pointless conversation at this point, really. As Jimmy says, he feels, as far as in the good graces of the media, lots of media asked for her to rematch Rose and should have been promoted, even though we knew it would be boring. I mean, she earned that one. She certainly earned that one, Jimmy. I know people argued with the split decisions and whatnot, but the wins are the wins. Story there was great, and they still dropped the fucking ball. The UFC still blew that one. Still blew it. So it didn't even matter, but yeah, I don't know. No, Rain, this is not what I'm saying. When she's the champ, she can. I don't even know. I don't even know. But champion is the champion for a reason, essentially. You know what I mean? Okay, I see what you're saying now. Like how she wanted the Abu Dhabi or whatever is what you're saying. And I definitely don't think Carla is more liked by the media. She's just more accessible, right? Like that. This goes back to a long conversation we've had about the accessibility or willingness to do media, and Carla isn't even that accessible. Like you guys know, I've told you, Sucker Punch is not the easiest management to work with, but she still does more media at least U.S. media, than Whaley. So obviously that by default kind of makes that blurry line that we're talking about here. But yeah, if you're referring to the Abu Dhabi thing, that was also amid the pandemic, right, where it was a lot more difficult to make, or what? I guess it was kind of before around. Either way, I don't know. It's all situational. I don't think this topic matters that much. Honestly, I'm kind of over it. Anyway, Ghost is now excited for Yasmin. Hope I'm not disappointed. Yes, I hope you're not either. But she's a fun one. So yeah, let's see here. We have one more to talk about, and we talked about this already too, didn't we? Yeah. So I guess the show is practically over. Cynthia Calvillo versus Nina Nunes, because this was supposed to happen a couple weeks ago as well, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm having total deja vu now. At flyweight, the flyweight debut and return of Nina for her second fight post-motherhood with the Mackenzie Dern loss a year and 2 months ago now. So she's taken her time to get adjusted for the division, which is always nice to see. And Cynthia Calvillo, kind of crazy. I did not realize she was 35 now, and I probably said the same thing when we did talk about this previously. Both need a win, both coming off losing streaks, one worse than the others. But hey, that's just how it goes. Just glad that Cynthia's taken at least a decent amount of time here, because she is desperately needed to change things up after those losses, because it's not been good for her. Needs to get back to her roots of wrestling. Pretty much all she should try and do in this one is just dominate Nina on the ground. Try to. Nina's got pretty solid takedown defense, as we saw as the fight went on against Tatiana Suarez. You know, obviously she got pretty dominated early on there, but had a great third round, won the third round undeniably, put Tatiana in some trouble. Nina's not a bad striker. Not a bad striker at all. Very underappreciated striker, actually. And in this fight, I think can have some advantages. She works the leg very good, too. Like, she's got some solid kickboxing. But Cynthia should definitely try to outmuscle her around a bit and get her on the ground, where she's been lethal throughout her career. Cynthia has been able to sink in a lot of submissions. Like another fighter who had, weird with Cynthia, a fighter who had a pretty solid killer instinct for the start of her UFC career for sure. And then it's kind of really faded, obviously. Hasn't, it's been a struggle in the last three, of course. But I think that the odds are right here. And then Nina obviously coming up to flyweight. That's a big factor. See how she feels there. I would imagine better not having to cut the weight. Maybe she'll have more power with her strikes. And I mean, Cynthia's also a former strawweight, so I don't think a size difference should be too big here. And then as you see on the numbers, it's actually about the same. So I'm intrigued by this one for sure, for probably more of the Nina elements to it. But we did talk about this a little bit already. So I think what that was a couple weeks ago, if you want to go back and hear both sides and maybe how different I sounded, but I think that's probably about the same. And Go says, why is Nina at 125? Well, she actually said even before when she got pregnant, that when she came back, she was going to go to flyweight. So she actually lied and stayed at strawweight first and now is going there. So I think she was just imagining or not wanting to deal with that kind of thing. So it's just something she's been talking about for a while. I don't know. Doesn't want to cut as much weight, whatever it may be. As Telvin says, pretty much both girls are fighting for their jobs. I don't know about that. Maybe Calvillo. I mean, you could be right. Could be right. You never hope for that, as we like to always be able to make their money. But yeah, I obviously backs against the wall for both of them here. So. And Ghost says, can Nina just pressure Calvillo? Calvillo was pretty horrendous at dealing with pressure against Andrade. Yes, that is true, but that was also Andrade. That is not quite how Nina fights. So can she? I mean, probably not, honestly, especially not like Andrade. That is just kind of one of a kind in that regard. But yeah, so would be a solid game plan, but I'm hoping as well that Cynthia has changed things up a whole bunch because she certainly needed to after the last one. No doubt about that. But all right, that is UFC San Diego, you guys. San Diego, as one Ron Burgundy would say. And that also makes for the end of our time today. At a pretty perfectly timed 1:30 send-off. Yeah, looking forward to this card, specifically for the main event, as you know, but very excited for Yasmin Yaraguai's debut. PST, apparently, according to Alex. I'm assuming that's not this week, but I'll have to go look into that. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. Maybe on Tuesday, maybe on Monday, still figuring that out. But in terms of what is coming to MMAmania.com, shameless plug time, as I mentioned, Alimale McFarlane. That is out right now on the website here on the channel. And then dropping either today or tomorrow, I did chat with Lin Hashin. So, the old MMA sister will be taking on Itsuki Hirata at the One Championship event with their first Prime Video event, on the 26th. So, spoke to Lin, and we spoke about the fights and her time training with Weili, and if she'd train with Weili again. So I'm sure you guys will be excited to hear about that, but always fun getting to catch up with Lin. Talk about cats, of course. Why wouldn't you? But yeah, Lin is great. So look forward to that today or tomorrow. MMAmania.com. And that about is it for right now. In terms of what's in the chamber, Telvin says, stay classy, San Diego. Indeed. And Jimmy says, do I have Prime Video? Yes, I do. So, yeah, I think that about does it, you guys. Do not forget to visit MMAmania.com for all your main needs. And don't forget to follow, like, share, and subscribe on each and every platform. You can even hit that notification bell so you don't miss a gosh darn thing on YouTube. And you can follow me at DrakeRiggs_, Twitter, and Instagram, if you'd so like. But until next week, you guys, I will see you later. See you around. Have a good one. Take care. Enjoy the weekend of action, and be kind to each other. We're all humans. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, as your mother once told you. So, all right, you guys, stay safe and stay sane.